Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to All Things Division 3 Soccer with Simple Coach and Jackie. I am indeed Simple Coach, and Jackie is out wandering about. Yeah, not having a great day today. So, thanks for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. It is week 3, and we're going to hit the top 25 men's teams of the season so far. So, should be interesting. There's a dramatic change in one particular instance that I'll go into. But so this may come as a surprise or not, but there's a couple of teams that I dropped just because I'm not sure. One of them, Covenant College, which stands at 6-2-1, lost to Oglethorpe, and I don't think Oglethorpe is the team of that they were last year. So they were sitting at 23. So I took them out. I think there's some other teams that are more worthy of being in the top 25 right now. But then in the biggest shakeup, for the first time, and I've been doing this for 3 years, for the first time in that time period, Messiah is no longer in the top 25. They have fallen out. So I thought they started okay. I did have some questions after the Scranton game. I didn't think that they were all that effective. I thought they played well, but I wasn't sure. Then they lost to Dickinson, and I thought they looked really erratic. They really struggled to connect. They're very atypical or untypical of Messiah soccer that I've come accustomed to. Then they lost to Salisbury, which I thought they looked better, but just were unlucky. So I was willing to, sort of, okay, we'll deal with that. They play E-Town in the Marshmallow Bowl, look really good, and sort of in the fashion that you get accustomed to if you're watching Messiah. They end up winning 4-0. And then they came back to home on Saturday and to play Penn State Harrisburg. Now, Penn State Harrisburg's doing okay, 5-3-1, I think, 5-4, 5-2-1, and it was that Messiah that I wasn't sure what was going on. Right, they were outshot 13-9. I think as with most teams that play Harrisburg or Messiah, they were a lot more physical, so a lot more fouls. But I just didn't seem to be a threat really. And again, I saw a lot of the same symptoms of what's going on. So I was reluctant to. I thought about dropping them down lower, but I'm like, I've seen enough this season where I'm not sure this team has the old formula, and I think they need to find a new formula. And until they find a new formula, I just thought, you know what, just take another look. And I got a lot of grief for a couple weeks ago for only having them at 12th or 11th or something like that. I was told that they were much better than that. And I think my initial concerns are well warranted. So that's it. So now with that, let's just jump into the top 25, right? So at 25, a newcomer. At 5-0-3, Christopher Newport. I thought they looked really good, or very good against Colorado, and then they beat Rowan. And I do think they look like a good, solid team and could do some damage in the ODAC, especially with Washington and Lee sort of a little bit muted this year. I will say they run the gauntlet this weekend. They travel to Ohio to face, I think it's Denison and then Kenyon. So that should be pretty interesting. So at 24, 7-0-1, also new to the rankings, and I put them in, especially the bottom 5 are more for me to keep an eye on, that I think can be interesting. Swarthmore at 7-0-1. I will say it'll be interesting to see if this is where they're at. They're able to stay in the top 25 in the next week and a half, because they start conference play, and they start with F&M at home. They go Washington on the road, and then Johns Hopkins at home. So could be make or break for Swarthmore, both in the rankings, Simple Coach rankings, but also in the Centennial Conference. At 22, 4-3-1. Oh, I'm sorry. At 23rd, 5-1-1. Claremont Mud Scripps. They lost Cal Lutheran, but then beat Chapman. But they're down a spot from last week. But this week they face Redlands and Whittier, and I know Redlands was another one I was thinking, should I add? Should I not add? So it's going to be a heck of a week for them. At 22, 4-3-1, battling Bishops of Ohio Wesleyan. Get a sense that they're having a little bit of a start of the season. It's going, fits and starts. Like, hey, we got it, we don't got it. They lost to Carnegie Mellon. They do play Capital and then Wittenberg, which I think they should win. So we'll see how that goes. At 21, up 4 spots, 7-1-1 McAllister, which is sort of, again, I find interesting. They tied a very good Gustavus, and now they go into the conference to play against Concordia Moorhead. So be keeping an eye. Again, sort of, do they have more runway, or does now get to be, as teams go into the conference, is going to be a little bit rockier. At number 20, this was one I sort of debated about, should they come down lower. Rowan at 2-3-3. They lost a tight game to Mary Washington, and then they lost to Christopher Newport, which are, those are two really good teams, and neither one were they out of the game. So I think this weekend they welcome a weakened Messiah, and then they kick off the NJAC against Rutgers Newark. So look, they got to win. I got just alarm bells. They have to win. So at 19, down 6 spots. Ouch. 5-3, Chicago. They lost to Wisconsin Eau Claire 1-0, and I'm not sure they looked terribly good going forward. So yeah, I just not a good feel. At 18, 4-2-1, Case Western. They beat friend of the channel, Coach Joe Bergen's Marietta, and then they tied Denison. They do have a little bit of a stretch. They welcome John Carroll and Mount Union, go Raiders, before meeting NYU. So that should be for a good, interesting week for them. So at 17, 4-1-1, Occidental. They beat Caltech and Whittier, and have a tough week ahead with Pomona, Pitzer, and Redlands. So again, can they continue to deliver? So at 4-2, 16, the Eves of Williams, the Williams Eves. They beat Union and relegation-bound Trinity 2-0. So at 15, 7-0-1, Dickinson. I think this is the biggest jump of the week so far, and they're up 9 spots. 7-0-1. They haven't conceded a goal in the last 3 games, including in their most recent tie with Washington, which was their Centennial Conference kickoff. So Yeah, we'll see how they navigate the conference and see, if they keep doing what they're doing, they'll keep climbing. That's for sure. At 14, 5-1-2, John Carroll, again with the crazy schedule. They managed to tie with Ohio Wesleyan, and then they traveled to Lycoming, where they had a tie, which is where I would have thought, a game I thought they should have taken, which is why they're down 2 spots. Also down 2 spots at 13th, 4-2-1, Johns Hopkins. Their Centennial Conference opener, they played at Muhlenberg. It's kind of a little bit of a stalemate. I don't know, just there was no real big breaks in that game. And they welcome Mary Washington on Wednesday, so that'll be a game to watch if you're interested. At number 12, 6-0-2, Gustavus Adolphus. They beat Carleton and then tied a very good McAllister. They keep inching their way up, and they keep playing well along the way. So totally acknowledge that. They are up 3 spots since last week. Down a spot from last week at number 11, Franklin and Marshall, the Diplomats. 3-0-4. This is another one I wasn't sure about. They sort of they had a rough stretch. The schedule was particularly hard. They did manage to get back in the winning column with wins against Alvernia and Haverford. And I think what I'm looking for now from them is just to be, you're going to go into the Centennial Conference, and I think they need to really assert themselves now. Now's the time, so. At number 10, 6-1-2, the Red Dragons of Cortland State. They beat Ithaca on the road, then they tied Scranton at home 2-2. And again, I think they're heading into conference play, and I really think they need to. The really tough preseason pre-conference schedule or out of conference schedule is over. So, now it's time to get down to business to see how serious they are. Up 5 spots. This is another pretty substantial jump. At 6-0-1 in 9th spot, Middlebury. They beat Endicott, and then they tied Amherst. And then today, watch a little bit, they beat Wesleyan. I think they scored with like 10 minutes left in the game. Next weekend, they have a game against. They traveled to Connecticut College for a game there, and so I'm looking. I'm wondering if this year's team is different and perhaps a little bit more resilient. So, speaking of, at 8, 3-1-2, Connecticut College had a solid away win at Colby. In the midweek they play Western New England, and then it's followed by, like I'd mentioned, Middlebury. Connecticut, mind you, is down 2 spots from last week. 7th, down 3 spots. Yes, another one who I think can hover here, if not go higher again. Again, because they have such a crazy out of conference schedule. Ohio Northern, 5-1-2. They tied University of Texas Dallas last week, and then they had what I think was a less than convincing win against Rose Holman. At number 6, 5-0-1. They're looking much more solid. 5-0-1 Tufts University had a really good win against Salem. And then they had a very convincing win against Hamilton, where they won 4-1. All right, so that goes to the top 5. Another one that's moving on up. Up 4 spots at 6-0-2, Wisconsin, Eau Claire, 90 minutes of hell. They tied at Luther, but still managed to score 3 goals. Right? They then followed it up with a really impressive 1-0 win against Chicago. And I think this team, I'm trying to look for their, I'm still watching, but I'm trying to find where I think they're vulnerable, and maybe it is that they are vulnerable on the, if you can catch them on the attack, right? Luther, as an example, scoring 3 to tie at 3-3. So at number 4, up a spot, 3-1-1. The Mammoths of Amherst. They beat WPI. Then they tied Middlebury at home, which is a good result. Next up is Babson, Bates, and Colby. So if I'm a betting man, I would say by the time that Colby game is done, they should be 6-1-1. But I'm not a betting man. Okay, so the top 3, same as last week. At 5-0-2, the Owls of Kenyon College. They wrapped up some couple solid wins against Anderson and Trine. I do think their next week is going to be really interesting because they face Otterbein, which is a good team, and then Christopher Newport. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Moving on to number 2, they were in the East Coast just this weekend. Colorado College, same as last week. I was going to drop them because they lost to Mary Washington yesterday, I believe, 1-0. Whereas the previous night they had tied Christopher Newport at Christopher Newport. But then I thought, man, that's a pretty trying travel experience, all that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit more gracious in the ranking, again, because they had 2 top 25 teams. They managed to tie, and holding Mary Washington to a 1-0 lead, I thought was pretty impressive nonetheless. So now with the conference to begin, I think that's where we'll start to see some of these teams, including Colorado, maybe drop. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Which then leaves number 1, no change from last week, at 8-0, Mary Washington. They beat Rowan 3-2 in a kind of crazy game. Rowan was up, was really taking it to them, and they managed to pull out in the last 20 minutes, I think. They managed to pull out the win. And then they beat number 3, Colorado. Number 2, Colorado College over the weekend. So they just keep rolling and playing with confidence. They can get the goals. I thought against Rowan, they looked a little bit flummoxed because Rowan was pressing really well high up the field, so they didn't have a lot of time with the ball in their backs didn't have time with the ball. Sorry to jumble that, but they still managed, and that's a sign for a good team. So yeah, at number 1, Mary Washington. So that wraps it up for today, for this week, week 3, the top 25s. By all means, if you agree, disagree, I just love the banter. Comment down below. I will post this on d3soccer.fans so you could actually read it if you so prefer. And yeah, by all means, shoot me an email if you think I missed something. Would love to engage. So thank you again. Hope you're enjoying the season so far. Things are really going to start getting interesting as, like I said, a lot of teams are now heading into their conference play if they haven't already started. And I think we'll see some some surprises here coming up in some of these games. So with that, thank you kindly. Hope to see you again soon, and we'll be doing. You'll probably see the next video will be the EJ Weekly Pool. So hopefully you're participating, and if you haven't, by all means, check it out and predict some scores for some games. So, but otherwise, we will talk soon.